Hi, it's Eva again. I wake up ambitious people like you and dare them to be great. And today we're going to talk to private and institutional investor Thomas Pav. Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you.
Being an investor and having worked as a COO at a scale-up, Thomas knows a lot about the context and the challenges of founders pre-revenue phase in the startup scene. So that's also what we're going to talk about today. What are the challenges of these founders? And how can you as an investor or as a founder yourself spot whether or not you're playing at full potential? Thomas tells us all about it, as well as, very crucially, some tips on how you can activate your potential if you recognize yourself in one of these challenges. And as usual, we end the episode with a sneak peek into Thomas's personal journey in his career as well, on how he was maybe not playing at full potential yet and what he did to boost that, to activate that. Are you ready for it?
Yes, let's go.
Okay, let's go. Well, most people I talk to, they're very passionate about something. They want to create an impact in this world. So you as an investor, as a person yourself, what change do you want to create in this world? What's the impact?
I think something that's hurting the world right now is a lot of inequality. It sounds a bit cheesy, but inequality has been something that I've looked at. How can I have an impact on lowering the barriers to entry for investors, for people with smaller means to get into startup, to invest in those, and to get that, I would say that exponential chance of a higher return. And just in general, I kind of give some lectures left and right about investing, but it's always really educational. It's not financial advice.
And what is inequality according to you? Because it can mean a lot of different things.
I would say inequality is right now in let's say in Western Europe is the fact that a household with two incomes struggle to buy a house, whereas people that have I would say more executive jobs will make a multiple that is way above what it should be from the lower income bracket in their company.
Okay, and it's that gap, that inequality that you wanna work on.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of companies that really help with this. For example, I'm thinking about Curvo, which is a company that will just help youngsters or people as of 50 euros a month. They can buy ETFs. So this is a market that previously I would say was more closed, and now we can see that students are using this app, and these kind of little initiatives are companies that I like because it shows, okay, you don't need to have 1,000 or 10,000 euros to actually make a little bit more out of your savings.
Yeah.
And those kind of initiatives, and also teaching people about like diversification, and sometimes I'm really surprised that people they don't really work with their banks anymore. So I would say this big gap, banks I think should be educating their retail customers, but I think that a lot of retail customers they don't even know that they can call their bank and say like, can I come to you for 1 hour and can we look into what I could invest in? What do you recommend? They're afraid of the fees, and obviously there are fees, but there are a lot of alternatives with lesser fees.
Yeah. All right, good. And it's also every time we meet, this passion is so big that you always want to share. Okay, what can you do now? What are the opportunities? What's really accessible for everyone? So it's a passion that you didn't only make your job of it, but it's something you take with you everywhere you go.
Yeah, it started quite early with I would say my dad involving us quite young and like showing us, okay, these are stocks that I'm looking at that I might buy, and then me and my brother, we would have the opportunity to look through them with him, learn why is he looking at them, why would he not buy them in the end, or would he? And so quite early, before I had a driver license, I had a big bank account to do some leverage trading, but it was minimal amounts, but very good to learn, and I really like it.
Okay, and that's what you want to pass on to the rest of us.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Whether you want it or not. No, I'm kidding.
I've experienced that, whether you want it or not. Okay. And so it started really small when you were younger. Now you are an investor, both private as and institutional. And so you're helping, you're investing in startups, you're helping founders as well to really get their business going where there are gaps. So what are the main challenges you see in these contexts?
I would say we're talking about especially raising funds. I think raising funds, if you're a first-time founder, can be quite tricky because usually they're a bit younger as well, and you don't have the network yet.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've already exited once or twice, you will probably be able to talk to the investors that invested the first time in your company and who had a return on that. And so there's a lot of advantages of having a team, I would say, with at least two founders. Solo founders, to me, is something that is really hard.
Okay.
Because you have to raise yourself, you have to do basically everything yourself.
Yeah. Next to running your business.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, like the business side, I'm not even talking about like you might have a family and kids, but then that company can take up so much space.
Yeah.
And you have no one to rely on. Of course, you can hire quite early on, give people ESOPs, option plans, but it's never the same as really co-founding something with the two or three of you, where you really feel like we're in this together. So in the context of raising funds, you also have three people that can actually help with raising funds.
Yeah.
And I think it can be very hard in today's market, where valuations are very different in Europe, very different in Asia, in America. And I would say sometimes as Belgians, we are a bit like, but I have this idea, and in the UK they're raising at 10 million, and here we're only willing to give me 5 million valuation, which is totally understandable. And if you have the network, if you have the co-founders, you might have exited in the past, you might go get that higher valuation.
Yeah, but if you didn't, if it's the first time, then it's more difficult.
Tricky.
Yeah. Do you help them in that?
I try to really look at every file in a way that it's a bit of a consulting moment. Like I'm gonna put time in it anyway, so I might as well give, as honest as I can, feedback on what I think is missing or what I really think is a reason why we will not invest. Like me and the team, we really try to give real feedback, even if it's 45 minutes debrief after we've did a couple of meetings. And to just answer all the questions that they have, which can only make them better in the long run. And we're all young, so I do believe we might meet each other in the next adventure, so we might as well be good to each other.
Okay, so there also the educational part, the wanting to teach them comes up, the inner teacher in you.
Yeah, good.
Are there other challenges that you notice in this context with these founders next to really raising those funds for the first time?
I think balancing private and business is something that I struggle with as well.
Yeah. So
I will also look at them, and sometimes I see it taking a big toll.
Yeah.
And of course, it's your baby. You've put a lot of time in it. You might have developed already a whole platform, working on it for 2 years. But I do sometimes try to remind them and myself in the same breath that it's a job, and that there's life next to it. And you know me, I also try every couple of years to just quit for a month, 2 months, and go walk in nature, be away from everything. But I also see that the older I get, the harder it is to really deconnect, because you will always have that phone, and once you've made investments, people will rely on you, and you can't really tell them like, no, not now. Like I feel like you can do this, but if it's really bad, I also think you should be there for them.
Okay, good.
It's a responsibility, I think, also to invest.
Yeah, indeed. And so how do you then deal with it today?
Today, I follow your course. No, today, I think coaching is a big part of it. It's really to make sure that you have an outside view. Hopefully, that outside view is as neutral as possible. And it's good to hear from other people, a coach, someone where you have a business relationship, where they just tell you like, listen, this is going too far, you shouldn't do this. Because when it comes from family and friends, there's always a bit of a history, and it's a bit harder. But for sure, this is the thing that I said, balancing life and work. So when I mean life, I would say then more like family life, friends. is to really keep these people around as much as possible. Take their inputs. You don't always have to listen, but I would say you don't have to obey.
Yeah.
But for sure, listen and listen to 4 or 5 people, not to 1 or 2. Just try to have a balanced input and keep friends close, I would say, because it's harder to make friends, I think, today than it was maybe 30, 40 years ago. So when you have those friends that really know you and that really support you as well, because they need to also be people that want to push you forward.
Yeah.
Try to keep them close, even if it's sometimes you've had an argument probably, and you're thinking like, this guy, it's been 5 years. Just give him a call, like put ego on the side and just see. And I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
To talk where have they gone and what happened actually, because
Yeah.
in 5 years.
In 5 years, a lot of things can happen.
Yeah,
and 5 years ago, you were always much less mature than you are now, whatever age you're at.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
All right, good. So that's a challenge that you see, and in which you find it interesting to really bring in an outside perspective, as well as keeping your friends close and your family close. Okay, good. It's also, when you choose certain context, for example, having a startup, doing certain investments, I think it also comes with consequences that you're choosing for the consequences as well. So in that sense, when you know that you need to have a lot of breaks in your career, my question would be, okay, but to what extent are your choices today allowing the other needs that you have? And if you would be a person, or if someone is a person that needs a lot of time off, then certain investments maybe are not the best choice, and you need to go and see, okay, which other types of investments can I make, or how can I stimulate myself intellectually as well without being linked to the entire startup scale-up raising funds scene. So it also comes a bit with that.
Yeah, of course. And I think one of the lessons I've learned is like, you might not want to put your money in a team with who you feel like you're not wanting to work, even if the product is amazing and that the best people are investing, but that you're thinking like, well, we had a couple of calls and there's not really a vibe. Maybe first of all, the startup can always say, we don't want your money. Maybe they feel that vibe as well. But I think as an investor, oftentimes you do have that opportunity to put the money in. And yeah, of course, think about like, do you want to work with these founders?
Okay.
That's really important.
And how do you find that out? Whether you would want to work?
Well, I think most people shouldn't, or at least I don't think it's very smart. You should have a couple of meetings, right? You will have a first initial meeting. You might meet in a bar. You might meet at a event for startups. You might also just meet through an introduction. There's a lot of ways of meeting startups. And then you will have a first call. It's exploratory. Then you will think about it with the team, yourself, if you're investing privately. And then you will have probably another 4 or 5 calls before you will put some money down.
Yeah.
So there is time to connect. And when I look at my personal portfolio, most of the CEOs, they've met. Like, I do little dinners at home.
Okay.
They come together. You've been there as well. I think it's really important for them, for example, to also meet a coach, to know like, okay, this is totally normal at one point to say in your life, like, a lot of things have changed, and I've been Thomas 1.0, and I need to really level up to Thomas 2.0, and probably when you're 40, you'll have to go to 3.0.
Yeah.
Because life changes, macroeconomics change, everything's is changing, and
so are you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to change on your own, and I think it's smart to have a coach or to have a mentor, people that you look up to, that you can call.
Yeah.
Just ask for it.
And if you then meet up and you have these calls, or you meet up at the bar, what are the things, like what are the extreme goes and extreme no-goes that you see in the behavior? Like, which type of CEOs or dynamics are you attracted to have in your portfolio?
Yeah. So the no-goes are, in my opinion, quite few. Like now, come to think of it, I'm like, okay, guys who are solo founders, I'm always a bit wary. Like, why are you a solo founder? Are you open to have someone else join? If they really don't want to and everything, yeah, you have these genius guys like Mark Zuckerberg or other, but who also come with kind of particular threats, I would say.
Yeah.
do you want to work with those? I think that's one of the things that I don't really like too much.
Do you have a solo entrepreneur in your portfolio or not at all?
Yeah, I think the first in the first 5 investments there were like 2, and I don't know if like it's not going bad or anything, but it is a different way of working, and I see that they have a lot of they have a lot more on their plate.
Okay.
Just simply because, like we said in the beginning, they have to do everything.
Yeah.
They have to do everything, and I think that after a couple of years, it is really hard, and it's also, to me as an investor, I also have these discussions with them if they want to. I'm like, how are you doing? And if they're not doing well, okay, then it's time to not talk about the business, but talk about them, because as they're solo, what happens to them has huge consequences on the company.
Yeah.
So I'd say solo founders is something that I prefer to not see, just because it's easier and I think safer for the entrepreneur as well to be in a group. I think it's also important to have people where you feel like there is a discussion and that you are building. So I'm saying A is going to say B, and on B I will build C, and we go D, and that we don't have A, B, and that it's just going nowhere.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have these guys who are really, really convinced about their idea, and when the whole market says like no, and they can see that it's not selling, and that you're just saying the market is wrong, like you need to be also in touch with, it's me that might be the problem, or it's the product that might need changing, and it's not the market that's wrong. If there is no market, then the product is not what it should be.
Yeah, so you want to have people with an open, curious mindset, and to always be able to challenge their own assumptions and to be very much in touch with, okay, what's happening, what's moving, what's the impact on us, so that they're not only looking from their perspective, their way of I am right, they are wrong, but that they are able to see it much bigger. Yeah.
You have there's a lot of the CEOs. Most of them they call now because like we've, I think, established this situation where they know, I don't want to be the board member that you're scared of. I prefer to be the board member that you call before the board to tell me like this and that is not working. Can we find a solution?
Yeah.
And that we don't have these stressful interactions. And I really like it when they call, and sometimes it's just business or looking at a sales pitch. Like, what do you think of it? Do we get the message? Are we giving a good message? And it's nice, and it shouldn't take too much time. But those are maybe sometimes the parts where I am putting a lot of time in there.
Yeah.
But also, it's for the benefit of everyone in the end. That's
Indeed.
what I think. Indeed. But you need to strike a balance.
Yeah. Would you say that you're more invested and really like hands-on invested in the companies that you invest in than the regular investor?
Maybe yes, because I think it's also because I'm younger. I might have more time, more energy. My portfolio is not that big, so it's important for me to see how it goes. Almost all the investments were pre-seed, so no revenue. Sometimes not even an MVP. Just because that was the reach 7 years ago that I had, and now the last 2-3 years ago it's changed. You can go a little bit later, also because the ticket sizes can be a bit bigger. But those younger startups, of course, I think all the help they can use, we should provide it for them. Yeah. And I think some business angels underestimate how much impact they can have. Yeah. Just because you're a business angel, usually you're already a bit older, you have that huge network, and if you invest, read the updates, come to the board meetings, and ask, can I help? If that's your profile, of course.
Yeah. So what would be, for founders that are listening now and that are looking for investors, what are kind of red flags that you can warn them for regarding investors?
I would say investors that immediately want you to do something different. Yeah. Maybe, like I said, it has to be A, B, C, and not just this A, B. Yeah.
In both directions.
In both directions. Yeah. I also think it's really important for them to to have a good relationship with the investor from the start. You can have a good feeling or a bad feeling, and understand most of the time you do need the money. But I think it's better to wait a little, and then to have someone that you will work with for the next 10 years. If the term sheet is also very harsh, then you're not, like the intentions might not be what you would hope for. And of course, do a couple of ref calls. I think it's really important before you put much time into a due diligence. Do your due diligence on them before they start with you, asking a lot of questions, accessing the data room. It's a lot of work, and I think it's better if the startup also has that right, of course, to have a little look and be like, okay, is this are these startups happy with those guys?
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, so it really goes in both directions, even though the founders really need the money. And sometimes, do you see it? And sometimes that they start really adjusting themselves and changing who they are or how they do things in order to get that money or to get that approval?
I am. We have a startup now. Me personally, and we've been talking with a huge partner that could also be an exit facilitator. And the longer we talk, the less I think they should do something with them.
Okay.
And a couple of days ago, I had a call with the CEO, and I said, like, listen, it's been so long. I think you should now send an email to say, like, listen, this is what we can offer you. We will not go lower. Everyone around the table is agreeing, except for you. We really want to work with you, but this is it, and let's leave it there. Yeah. Because if they have been behaving like this for a couple of months, why would this change?
Indeed. I mean, it's a pattern.
Yeah, why would it change?
Yeah. Okay, so there you say you got to draw a line.
Yeah, and it's also important it's not because you have a feedback about 3 startups about the VC, it's important who they work with within the VC as well, because you need to understand as well that a principal doesn't have the same role or bandwidth as a partner or vice versa. It's really depending on the organizational structure there. Yeah. Something to look at as well, I think, is the lifetime of the fund. Are we here in the last years of the investment period, which is usually 5 years, and then it's 5-year disinvestment? Yeah. Because then they will probably start raising a new fund and be busy with that. So that's something that I learned also in the past years.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And so you talked about, indeed, there's the challenges of raising the funds, the challenges of finding someone that fits you, both founder-wise as investor-wise, the challenge of managing work-life balance, because there's a lot of work, and very often you're so passionate about the work as well that it's not...
You get lost.
You get lost.
But
because
it's fun getting lost, I guess. Until it's not.
So where do you see the challenges? Because these are a bit more context-related challenges. So if you really look at the founders themselves, founders that choose these types of contexts to be in, what do you see there that they're bumping into or that they're doing not to use their full potential to sabotage themselves?
I think one of the big things is exhaustion.
Exhaustion.
It's really like you're talking all the time to investors, and to get one yes, maybe you will have 99 no's. Yeah. And just to realize that you're not alone in this. Yeah. Like, this is oftentimes how it goes. And a lot of great companies have really struggled to raise and have had a lot of no's. I know, like Chamat Palihapitiya from Facebook, he said no to, I think it was Stripe. And now he's like, okay, I missed on a 5 billion opportunity. Yeah. But still, he's like bantering with the CEO of Stripe, and like now. But to get a refusal from many people, or to get a refusal from someone who's this type of veteran in the industry, I guess it's hurt for them as well. Yeah. But then it still worked out really well. Yeah. But this is easier to say now, of course, than when you're sitting in your car coming back from the 10th meeting where they tell you no. Okay. So I think that exhaustion they should really pay attention to. And I think that's why you also need to distance yourself from your job. Yeah, indeed. And not have that carry over into your
Yeah, because
family life.
it's indeed, it's exhaustion, but it's also really dealing with that refusal time and time and time and time again. So how do you help them get over that, or what can you do, or what can they do to really deal with that and not just look at that one no, but...
So there's two parts of this. There's two parts to this. First of all, you have the company. Why are we saying no?
Mm-hmm.
And then there is the, how do I deal with the refusal?
Yeah.
If you can deal with the refusal the first 10 times, maybe the 11th time you should look into, okay, why? And I think that's really important to talk to investors and really tell them, please just give me, the blunt answer. Why is this not for you? If it's an impact fund and you're doing something totally not impact related, okay, then their answer will probably be like, you're not impact related. But if it's a fund that is more agnostic, that invests in similar projects as yours, ask them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it might just be like, no, we're betting on a different horse.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be good for us to have those two portfolio companies within our fund.
Yeah.
But try to go deeper.
Okay.
Because if that's the case, you can always ask them like, okay, is there another fund that you would like to work with? Could we talk to that startup? Maybe there's something to do there.
Yeah.
You never know. And we're kind of a small country, and I like the idea that a lot of people know each other, and we can, in 3 steps, talk to basically anyone you want. So ask for that introduction, and really take the feedback. And don't push it away just like, you don't get it. That's something like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't. That's true. But try to at least see where I'm coming from as well.
Okay. Is it something that goes naturally, or that you really have to push them to do that? To ask,
Again,
to go
it
deeper?
depends on the founder.
Yeah.
If it's a solo founder, oftentimes it's a bit harder. Like there is this tendency of they're strong people, and they will not just take it from anyone.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's also a good thing to do is for me to just say to someone else that's a bit older, okay, maybe you should do the debrief. This is what I thought, and I think they will take it better from you than from me.
Mm-hmm.
Which I understand. Like if you have a founder who's 55 years old, who already had, a professional life that's not in the entrepreneurial scene, but that has had a good salary, has maybe 200 people that he led, maybe doesn't want to listen to a 30-year-old guy. I totally get that.
And then you also put your ego aside and try someone else to convey the message.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's a good quality as well.
Yeah.
Because
Pick your battles.
Pick your battles, indeed. Because in the end, you have one goal, is to make it succeed, whether you say it or not.
Yeah.
That's nice. Okay, so you see, like, exhaustion is really a challenge for these founders. A lot of refusal. Anything else that you notice that's a challenge?
If you have a couple of co-founders, of course it's not gonna be good all the time.
Yeah.
And yes, a CTO might sometimes see the product in a different light than a CEO who sees more the business and what should we do to get to the next round. This is not always easy either. And there, I would say, talk to your early investors. Mm-hmm. They can often facilitate this kind of discussions and be a bit like, okay, guys, calm.
Yeah.
Well, if it already gets there. But it's important to really communicate and make sure you have these moments with the team to look into a product in a very objective manner. And, okay, we understand the investors want this, but we cannot deliver, or it's too expensive, or we don't see a market for this. Just communication. And don't keep things to yourself for too long. Make sure that you talk.
Yeah, I think that's also a good time to really go and talk to a coach, because the dynamics, when you said I prefer to work with founders that are with more people than solo founders, the first thought that popped into my mind is, okay, but when you have multiple founders, very often certain friction arises, especially if everyone's exhausted and you get a lot of no, and you're scaling at a very intense speed. Friction will be there for sure. So that's really also a good time to go and talk to a coach that can really observe what the dynamics are between you as founders and see, okay, where does it go wrong the most? Because typically when you start, or the dynamic is really helping you to go from that really startup phase to a big, slightly bigger phase, but the dynamic will then block itself once you have to go harder and faster, or when there's the pressure that all of a sudden new parts of people come up, which then don't really match up with each other.
Yeah.
So that's a good phase to go and talk to someone.
Yeah, of course. And it's also a good moment to hire senior people when you're scaling, because it's you've been sitting maybe with the four of you around the table, 4 screens. What do you think? Okay, we do this. Did you talk to? At one point, it's not possible because every single one of you will have probably a very different role, the CTO, CEO, CFO, whatever, with a couple of people working for you.
Yeah.
And that culture you had in the beginning, if it was good, then you need to propagate this throughout the whole company. So this is something that you actively need to do.
Yeah.
And just the processes have to be clear.
Yeah. Okay.
Because sometimes, you hire 10 people, and there's not really you can't run the company in the same way.
No.
You need some lines. It doesn't have to be, N+5, but maybe just a little bit of structure from the beginning will greatly help you scale in the next phase. And then you have a coach, but you could also take, an external advisor or consultant. Like, I don't think it's very necessary in the beginning. Then I would recommend you talk to angel investors or to even the VCs.
Yeah.
What will we do? What title would we give this? Take that moment with your advisors to sit and to really be like, okay, for 1 hour, can we just talk about how do we, get to the next phase?
Yeah.
We feel this struggles. We see that this person is this. Because sometimes it's also hard now talking about people in HR as well. Some people, they prefer to work in a startup with 5 people where it's very free. Everyone, you see the impact you're having immediately. And they don't fit that well anymore in a 50 people company.
Yeah.
And it's not nice to tell to those people like, well, we don't think you're a fit anymore for the company.
Yeah.
Of course, there should be a couple of discussions before, right? You don't just be like, you're out.
Yeah.
But you need to, really pay attention to the people, have that culture managed, make sure that you're not busy fundraising and doing only BD as a CEO, but also going to talk to people like, how do you feel? What could we improve? Where do you see opportunities? Just be connected to the people.
Yeah. Is that the moment where you see the most friction arise in that phase when you scale from, let's say, 5 to 50 and that there's really this disconnect then, or?
I think a CEO during a funding round can be quite absent.
Yeah.
And it's always good to remember, if you're a CEO, you need to put time in development of the business, because the better the business gets, the easier it's going to be to get that funding done. So if you're just focusing on funding, it might be a bit harder to also scale the business and make it more attractive. It's of course very hard because you don't have the resources sometimes to hire someone or to make it easier. You're raising all alone. And there it's really important for me that CEOs understand they don't have to raise alone.
Yeah.
Ask your angel investors if they can introduce you, ask VCs if they can introduce you, have people in the team, help you, especially the C-levels, and they should be able to raise on themselves as well. If they meet an investor, they should be able to have that narrative, to have that talk that he's having. And you can always be a bit mysterious and be like, okay, I'll put you in contact with the CEO. I think we're quite close. I mean, why not? Like, if it's not your thing, pass it on. But you need to at least be able to make the company sound attractive.
Yeah. Okay. So involve your angel investors rather than doing it
team,
all alone. And okay, good. All right. So a question I also always ask, because it's part of my job as well. So how can you, what are very concrete things that you can spot in the founders that you work with that you start noticing, okay, but you're really not playing at full potential anymore. There's some self-sabotage. Maybe there's some red flags here and there. What are the concrete things you or an investor can spot in these founders?
I think when the flexibility goes away.
Okay, when the flexibility goes away. Yeah, that's a big one that you...
It's really... And it's very clear. you're just not talking to each other
Yeah.
the same way you were.
Yeah.
I think it's also when people start distancing themselves.
Okay. And what do you mean by distancing?
If I feel like I made 5 intros for you that you asked for and you're not following them up, and we have a discussion about this, and you cannot just be like, yeah, okay, it's true, then we're not really trying to make anything better, right? But this is just an example about that flexibility to be able to say, maybe here I messed up indeed, and then we can be like, why? Oh, I said yes too fast. Actually, I didn't have the bandwidth. I'm like, okay, then we do it. Next time just say no, do it later. But that's just one example. But it's also that flexibility. If the team is distancing themselves because they feel like, yeah, he's not seeing it anymore or she's not seeing it anymore as we do. And then again, it's a startup, so it might be 4 people against 1, and maybe that one person is right.
Yeah.
That's really hard to say who's right. But investors will be less present. They will be less keen to ask, how is it going? And this has impact, right? Because if you need money again in a year, yeah, people are not going to be like, of course.
No.
They're going to be like, things need to change, and then we might. And then you're starting to negotiate already in a position of weakness.
Yeah, okay. And do you then believe that they're distancing themselves because they don't have the courage to speak up, or?
It's a lot of energy, right? When you talk to someone that you really want to help, they don't see it that way. You're just, pushing. It takes a lot of energy. And I prefer it to be pulling. Ask me for help, I can help.
Yeah.
Again, a bit pick your battles.
Yeah.
Because these founders need to understand that most angel investors, and especially VCs, they have 20, 30 companies to cater to.
Well, but the fact that they don't ask for help, that they distance themselves, that they don't talk about what is happening in the communication between you and them, what's there at the core of it? Why don't they ask for help? Is it that they don't dare to speak up anymore? It's
in both ways, right? When I say distance themselves is the red flag of a founder where it's not going well anymore. To me, it's the investors that gonna distance themselves and the advisors.
Okay.
And then you're already quite far.
Okay.
Because that means discussions have been held and nothing has come out of it.
Yeah.
So the root cause, I think, for that side leaving the table is just that you're talking to someone who's stubborn, who doesn't want to listen anymore. So it's really just hard to advance in that situation. Then the other hand, if the founder is distancing himself from the rest, if it's from everyone, then I think, there's something with distrust, or he might not be feeling well. And I think we cannot underestimate the pressure.
Yeah.
Especially if you're alone, everything kind of falls down on you. And that's, I think, where it's important to have that investor who is not only there for the money, and everyone in the end is there to have a return.
Yeah.
But there's ways to go about it. And for example, for me, I consider a lot of these people also to be part of my social circle. So they will have an impact on me as well. If they're not doing well, I'm like, okay, let's see how we can make this better.
Yeah. Well, a good thing maybe to also, and maybe you're already doing it, but one of our previous guests, executive coach Katrien Nuits, she talked about the importance of process communication. So it's really communication about what is happening between people and what is happening in the process, rather than solution communication. Okay, it's not identical here, but it's really the ability to zoom out and stop talking about what's happening in the content, stop talking about which views are right, which views are wrong, but to really start talking about, okay, but what's happening in the interaction. And sometimes when you can put that observation on the table, then it doesn't go about the content anymore, but it really goes about, okay, I noticed that it's always that you really call out the interaction and what is happening there. The relationship, the interaction. So that it's really about that, and you can talk about the way to communicate to each other and maybe to make some changes over there. So maybe that's something you can give along with these people when you notice it's happening again, that you zoom out and go and start to communicate at a different layer than in the content. Because when people are stuck there, there's no trying, because it doesn't work.
I think that's that part where you try to sit down with the three of you, have someone in between. Or just have someone else convey the message that everyone is thinking. If it's coming from you and it's by definition gonna be wrong, then it's like, okay, but everyone thinks like that, so you can hear it from someone else. Okay, you don't say it like that, obviously, but put your ego aside and just say to someone else, like, okay, maybe I should not be the person to say this because this and that. And then it's someone else who might say it. And sometimes, then it blocks again. Okay, find another solution. Yeah,
or go and talk about the interaction rather than the solutions. Because again, if you bring someone else in to tell them what you actually want to tell them, but they're not hearing you, you're again talking about that solution. But very often when someone becomes stubborn, it's not because they are stubborn. It's because something is happening in the root of the problem that we don't see. And the strategy of that person is to use stubbornness to protect themselves. But if you dig deeper and you start to understand, okay, but what's actually underneath this and why you think you need to be stubborn in order to make your case or protect yourself, very often there lies insecurity, I don't have time, there lies a lot of different reasons over there. And if you can talk about that, the stubbornness is not necessary anymore in the communication. And so it's really digging deeper, as you say, or I gave as an advice, if you get a no from an investor, dig deeper, ask why, get feedback. This is the same if you notice that someone is stubborn, okay, but dig deeper, ask why. Try to understand why all of a sudden they're using this strategy where before they were using the strategy of collaboration, because something else is up. And you're not going to solve it by talking more about the content. Good. So a lot of challenges. It's always good. So which 3 tips would you give to these founders on how to activate their potential more and deal with the context and the challenges that they're dealing with?
We've discussed about keeping time for yourself, the family, going on a trip and realizing that I might as well open a little bar in Thailand and be, stress-free for a couple of years. Just to know there's a plan B. Usually if you're a founder, you're a smart guy or woman, you have options. People choose to be in that position, and sometimes they forget it's a choice. And so that back door is there. Then again, you might have raised a lot of money and have, put your house on mortgage. Then things are different. I really appreciate that. But there is always a back door.
So there, because you did it yourself at a certain moment in time, you started walking, you took a lot of months off to walk the PCT, the Pacific Crest Trail. How did you prepare for that in order to really have that time to walk it? I don't know, how long were you gone?
It was, the Pacific Crest Trail was about 5 months. I don't remember exactly, I think like 157 or 160 days. How did I prepare? First, financially, it's you have to save.
It's not cheap to walk it, right?
No, it's not cheap, but it's also like the gear is quite expensive, and like every gram is important. And then mentally, the hardest part for me was I have a weak knee, or I had a car accident, so I had a lot of pieces in my body that hurt, even when I'm just sitting. And I noticed while I was walking that the only voice that was coming back really regularly was like, what if? Like that what if I fall here? Or what if this doesn't heal? Or what if I don't get enough food to get there? Stuff like that. And to really close it off immediately and say like, no, tonight we sleep there. That's the goal. And tomorrow is another day.
Yeah.
And to really cut it up in pieces.
Okay.
And that's also, I noticed there is like a fatigue because half of the trail is California.
Yeah.
And then you have other states. But so you're passing the midpoint and you're still in California.
Yeah.
And you're really mentally, it's like, wait, I'm only just at the middle and I'm still not out of California.
Yeah.
And that was hard for me, and it was hard for a lot of people. Like not all people are really like happy at the midpoint. It's like a little thing. I was like, wow, another, and I was already destroyed and lost 15 kilos. I was like, oh. But again, end of the day, let's, and then you meet people, and that's a really big part of it, is like really, you meet people that are really good, that help you, that support you, that want you to get there.
Yeah.
And something really weird, because I did other trails for 30 days. These trails, I feel very often you feel who's not going to make it.
Okay.
And it's usually the people that are doubtful, that are making you doubt, that are talking a lot about their fears of what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think if you live that way, or you hang around these people, it's always, they tend to have these injuries or break something, and it's also a constant reminder, because people die on that trail every year. It was not different for me. There's 2 people that I met briefly that died, a third one as well. And you see the helicopters all the time, like the SOS button that you need to wear. You see those helicopters.
Yeah.
And in certain areas, you see them twice a day.
Yeah.
And it might not be for other people that have the same goal as you, the same permit, but I think it's like 8,000 people. But there's also a lot of weekend hikers.
Yeah.
So there is people on these trails.
Yeah.
And it's really about closing the door of doubt really fast.
Yeah, okay. And did you, because indeed what you focus on, you attract. So if you focus on fear, if you focus on doubt, you will see more of that, even though there's as much fear and doubt to be as for you. So did you notice that the what if, the more that you said stop to it, that the less it came back? So that at the end of the trail was less what ifs that you had to stop than at the beginning? Or how did that evolve?
It's I think also a question of you start to trust yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, it's all new, especially being 5 days without a resupply point in the desert. Yeah, sometimes it is a bit scary. And the water dries up the longer you walk. Then you get to the mountains, and the mountains are quite high. You summit Mount Whitney. These what ifs, once we passed that like mid-section of the Sierras, it was actually a bit earlier, but once I passed that part, I was like, okay, this should work. Like, I did this, the rest should work.
Yeah.
And so with the what if, at the end, I was also walking 40 kilometers a day, and that was the standard. Whether it was up or down, flat, that was the metric. And one day, like we did 68 or something, just because your body is in pain, but you really feel that your brain has changed, and your brain is like, we're doing this, and the end point is there, and then you continue. Also, I think at one point,
your body also becomes stronger, I guess, after so many days of hiking.
We had a stop in Portland, and I remember a couple of people had COVID, and I remember I was laying in my tent alone. There were like hundreds of mosquitoes around. I couldn't sleep, but I was also starting to feel ill. And I remember I don't know if it's meditating, but I was just falling asleep, saying to myself, like to my body, not now, tomorrow we're healthy, not now, tomorrow we're healthy. Just kept saying it.
Yeah.
And the morning I woke up and I was fine.
Yes.
And I
full of
don't
mosquito
know,
bites, but fine.
Yeah. But I was really thinking, no, I don't want this. And I saw other people dropping off, because then all of a sudden they're not there anymore. So okay.
Yeah.
And you don't really have a cell phone. So it's this little village of people moving.
Yeah.
And this village really breaks into the people that complain, the people that not complain, the people that want to go fast, the people that, party in every 10 days in every town that they get. Everything is possible.
Yeah.
But for me, the drinking was not an option for the muscles, because I had a lot of tendinitis everywhere. So at one point it was like, okay, if I just drink, for that one night I'm in town, I'm really setting myself up for a lot of pain and maybe failure.
Yeah.
So you start making decisions to really succeed.
Okay.
And at one point you have one goal and everything you do is just directed to
that goal. Yeah. And did you then notice when coming back and working again that you also had less what ifs, or that, like, how did it change in that sense?
Oh, it's interesting. I had a family dinner, and my grandma, she said this weekend, actually, she's like, yeah, when you came back, something changed, like something was a bit broken. And it was really something that I didn't expect. Maybe we should talk about it later. But I will ask her again, like why she thought that, because there was a lot of people around. But what I do feel is like, I think I had more confidence.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also a confidence that you need to make relevant in life in Belgium or wherever you are. And that's not a given.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's a physical and mental exercise. It's not necessarily that you have very good hard skills, like it doesn't make you a mathematician.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to translate that. And I also think it's so long, and I will just say it's so beautiful, that you spend so much time in nature, all alone. You have a lot of interactions with animals. You also just smell horribly. And we could smell people if they were weekend hikers, just because we could smell and they've probably been hiking for 2 days. They think they smell like sweat, but your nose gets so accustomed to nature that we could just smell the powder. And to be that far away, it was also a very intense happiness.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the phone. And I will say that when I had data, I would just reply to everyone, but not that night. Everything would come in, like 50 messages, everything comes in, notifications. And I would just reply on it when I felt like it, because it was also possible.
Yeah, to not reply and
Yes.
to take your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people don't take it too bad. Like we missed Michel's wedding. I really sucked. But I saw people that left to go to a wedding. They lost their whole group, and most of them didn't finish the trail.
Yeah.
Because you go back to comfort. You're like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And so when you are totally in there, and that beauty of nature, I have never seen anything like it, because we don't have it in Europe. It's also called literally wilderness, Wilson, or it's called wilderness.
Yeah.
Because it's so far away from anything. And when you leave trail, usually you have to walk to trailheads. That could be a half a day walk. Then people that are just good Samaritans, but they want to be part of that bigger story, they are just waiting there to bring hikers to town and bring them back once we've resupplied and we're ready to go back.
Okay.
And I think it's really important to be in touch with what I said, with family and friends. For me, I would say it's maybe a bit more nature. And it's quite incredible.
Okay.
That beauty. And I had deer walk with me. And, like I would go off trail to take a leak, and they would wait.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what is happening?
That's amazing.
Butterflies sitting on you, like really regularly. We had these huge salamanders. Like every time there's a lake, you swim and you kind of watch something, because it's nice. Like these animals, these lakes, they don't get fished in, because it's such a hassle to just go up there. So you have hundreds of fish.
Yeah.
And they are not that scared. It's really weird. It's like
they're just
marmots. They come to your bag. They're like scratching on it, and you're just sitting next to it. And I think it has a lot to do with going back to a bit more of a primal state, where you smell like you are meant to smell. You have your vibrations are at a whole other level. You're way more in tune with what's happening. And it opened up a lot of insights of, okay, is the way I am living right now really the right way to be happy?
Indeed. All right. Oh, good. I always love to hear you talk about it. When you came back, you were, for me, the change that I saw was that you were really calm. There was this sense of calm. And from that sense of calm, the way that you were educating people was different. It was more from this is what I know, you do with it whatever you want, instead of this is what I know and you really should do something about it because I see that your future would be so much better if you follow this advice, but that you just let it be. And just like nature, you just gave what you had, but whatever I did with it or someone else did with it was out of your hands. And that was a big shift that I saw happening in you when you came back from the PCT. Yeah. Okay, so that's one of the tips that you have for people to really be in nature, try to really have these moments to deconnect from the day-to-day, from all the responsibilities. And if you can do a PCT, you can ask Thomas all about it. But I don't know if a lot of people can do it. But any other tips next to that?
Yeah, I think we touched on it as well. Surround yourself with people who support you and who want to see you succeed. Yeah. And who are like, in a way, cheering. Yeah. You know, they might not have had the same opportunities, but they're still like, you go, you know, go get it. Yeah. I think that's really, really important.
And it's not always the people you grew up with, because sometimes it's more difficult over there, but indeed really make a scan of all the people that surround you and see, okay, who cheers for me?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really important. And also just by, that would be the last point, is just to be kind to everyone around you. It sounds, again, very fluffy, but in a way, I'm thinking, if you're nice to 10 people, 2 might bite, but 8 might be like, okay, nice, and pay it forward, because they just are like, okay, the world is not that, sharky of a place, because we do, I think sometimes if you would just read the news, we're almost made to believe everything is falling apart, and especially now, we're talking about Trump and Zelensky for a couple of days now. We're talking about the war, escalation, inflation. And sometimes I'm really thinking, knowing these things on a macroeconomic level, it's interesting, but I don't want to feel frustrated about it anymore, or I don't want to have the discussion of like, oh, this and that, and it's not going well, because it's not helping me. It's not helping the people around me, and it's not easy to also just be positive all the time. Like it's not. It's a constant effort. So I would say, being kind to people, to me, it's a way of brightening my day very easily. Yeah, you know what I mean.
And it's the same as what you said on the PCT. If you focus on the fear, on the doubt, on the frustrations, on what's happening on a macroeconomic level, this is also what you tell your brain, your body to feel on a day-to-day. So by focusing on that kindness, it's actually what you will also get back, or what you will filter on, and that's what you will notice.
There is this one part, it's called the Dixie Fires, and it was like, I don't know, an area bigger than Flanders or Belgium, but it was at least a couple of days that we walked, and everything was burned. Okay. And when I say everything, it's really everything as far as the eye can see, and this for multiple days. Yeah. And there I saw a lot of people crying, and me too, just because there is nothing anymore. All the trees are burnt. So there, what was really interesting is that when there was water, there would be some grass and some like low flowers, and those were for me the moments where I'm like, okay, everything burned here. And to give you an idea, like the granite rocks had just split of the heat, so you can imagine everything died. But still, some animals, they went into the ground. A lot of them still died, but some survived. Water from the sources came back, and then you could sometimes see these trickles in front of you of green, because okay, there's some water there. Yeah. And again, you try to focus on that because you see it 3 or 4 times a day, luckily, so you have water. But otherwise, the ash is everywhere. It's in your hands, your eyes. It goes through your shoes, through your socks. Everything is black. Like, everyone is just looking the part as well. And then those little things, that was, even if it would have been once a day, which means I would have to carry a lot of water, but it would brighten my day maybe that much more, because it's like, oh, there is the source. And so this is what I really try to think in these terms of little things. And there again, you have to also pay attention that you don't help for free all the time, because then you're just not being, centered anymore. Like,
Yeah.
you also need to live your life.
Yeah.
But just being kind, I think it would benefit us all.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we're going to the end of the episode where I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about your journey, and you already talked about it a little bit. But so if you would look back 10, 15 years ago on how you were not playing at your full potential, or how you were maybe sabotaging yourself, what would be the thing? Is it something you already mentioned before, like the sometimes the doubt, or would it be something else that you don't do anymore today?
I think I came from a place where the pressure was high to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
So I put a lot of pressure on myself, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to, now I'm aware, which is already, I think, the bigger part.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to shift certain things to be more balanced.
Okay.
And I think that comes from, we all have doubt and uncertainties, whether we want to admit it or not. And to a certain extent, it might be very light for some people and very heavy for others.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that being aware of certain things in my life and the way I conduct myself is the first step to be also looking for change.
Yeah. And that awareness, how did you create that? Did it just came all of a sudden while you were walking, or did you cultivate it in a specific way?
I think it's talking to people, and also just, I read a lot of biographies or autobiographies, and they really help to, I would say, they really help to see what mistakes people make. And sometimes you recognize yourself in them, and then you can be like, okay, he did that this way. Look how it turned out for him. And just try to then discuss this, for example, with you or with good friends, and to be just like, okay, what do you think about this?
Mm-hmm.
Do you recognize myself? Stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay.
I think
So
it's
really
talking. Yeah.
talking and also looking at different perspectives and how things turn out in other people's lives. That's what you love to do.
You can't take, I would say, you can't take decisions out of trauma in the past, right?
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're also getting distorted.
You can. I think a lot of people start businesses sometimes as a reaction to what they've faced. People that grow up in poverty, that very often then say, okay, it's not gonna be like this. I'm gonna do it differently, and really from that intense power and that intense energy to get rid of that past, or to do it differently. I mean, it's an enormous strength sometimes, but at a certain point in time, what they will notice when they're running their own companies is that, once they've achieved that wealth and that they've achieved what they wanted, that there will be a lot of friction, because all of a sudden the driver that brought them there is not necessary anymore. So
big black hole.
A big black hole, or people that
Founders that have sold.
Indeed, founders that have sold it. So it's an immense driver, but at a certain point in time, there will be friction also for you. The pressure to be seen, it brought you somewhere. But at a certain moment in time, you notice, okay, but now it's actually causing me more harm than it gives me skills or resources to
that you just take a step back and filter out, okay, what projects do I want to work on, which ones should I just say like, no, it's too much. And it's not easy to just say like, because it's all quite exciting, and I'm like, I want to see where it goes and help where I can, and then you have to say, okay, no, I can't, and it feels it often doesn't feel good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, because
but
you're missing out, or because you're afraid that you're not helping enough?
No, I think it's a big part of missing out. Cool relationships, businesses, new ideas. You meet a lot of people, or you don't if you say no.
If you say no to a lot, So if I would ask this question to you again in 15, 20 years, what would it then look like if you have tackled this? Like, how would your life be positively influenced if you don't have that pressure to be seen?
I have a bar in Thailand on a beach. No. I don't think it's the pressure to be seen is really the old thing, which now has led me to be more like I want to perform. I want to do things right.
Yeah, for you.
Yeah, and that's a lot of pressure. So it's more like stop putting the pressure on doing everything right. It's okay to make a mistake.
Okay.
And to not always please everyone.
Okay.
You know,
Okay, so that
choose
pleaser...
for yourself a little bit more.
Indeed. Don't work for free for everyone.
Yes.
That's what I always tell you.
Yeah.
Okay, so what will it then look like if you have tackled that? If you don't always have to be right, if you don't have to please anymore, if you can have that balance, like, what will it look like? What will be the impact on your life?
I think it's an interesting question, catching me a bit off guard.
That's what I like to do most.
I think I just want peace. Really, I just want peace. And I think sometimes, in 15 years, maybe a farm somewhere on a mountainside would be very, very nice.
Yeah. Where you can smell like the originals again and
yes,
and smell the day hikers.
Yes. And just have, that thing in Brussels or any other city where you can, see your friends, be close.
Yeah.
But to also have more greenery around me. And I have some friends, they moved to Annecy. And I went to visit them, and it was quite intense. Like you have Solomon there, Volkel, a lot of these big corporate companies, Arc'teryx, Wilson.
Yeah.
And it's a little town. You can drive through it in 15 minutes by bike. And there, first time in my life, I saw like average age 40 years old. And people from all the companies, they meet at the climbing club. Or they meet jogging around the lake. Or they meet doing parapente. Everyone is really there with a purpose. And I thought that was really interesting. And people that I knew there are people that I met on the PCT. One was working for, I think it was JP Morgan, and the other was an internal controller somewhere else. And they both moved. They were a couple, and they just changed completely.
Yeah.
They're still working in, like good corporations. I mean, it's a CV that's good. But now it's completely different. It's skiing, mountaineering, mountain biking, and on a daily basis, they're almost out.
They're outside. Yeah,
they're
all
outside.
Right. So that's how you see it for yourself as well.
I think it would be
more
cool,
or less,
to have way more touch with nature.
Okay. Well, if you move to Annecy, I have a place to come and visit. So
yes.
Go for it, I would say. All right, good. So we're at the end of the episode. Is there anything else, some last words that you would tell me or the listeners, the founders or the investors that are listening?
No, I think it's don't put too much pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
And ask for help.
Yeah.
Like more people will call. I will answer the call, I think, than people sometimes think. And just ask for help.
Yeah.
Do it on time. Don't wait until it's all. You don't really have anything to prove in the end, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, okay, that's a really good advice. So if you are a founder in the pre-revenue phase or you're an investor and you like this episode, share it with someone else that needs to hear it, that wants to hear it, because together we create a world where people wake up and dare to be great. See you in the next time. Ciao.